I think the rookies, whether it's coming off bye weeks or just whether it's we're getting further into the season, they're getting more experience. The coaching staff's getting to know them better and getting to know the ways that they can win out there. We're going to see some more guys come on. And we've talked about a bunch of rookies this season, right? And we've focused a lot on the top guys, on the Ashton Genties and the Marion Hamptons and Tedero McMillan, who we will talk about shortly. But I think there's a lot of other rookies that we need to spend more time discussing here. And it's not just the Bears guys, and it's not just as deep as the Bears guys, though I do have a couple deeper names that I want to mention. The first guy that I think everybody should be talking so much about is Quinshon Judkins on the Browns. And I get it. He wasn't there the first week. There was the off-field stuff. But after he signed with the team, after he joins in week 2, this guy has been unbelievable for fantasy. And I wonder if it's because he's on the Browns that people are still kind of discounting him and not looking at him as much and not talking about him as much. But he's been unbelievable. At least 70 scrimmage yards in all 4 of his games so far. And that includes that debut when he only played 27% of the snaps, right? The 3 most recent outings, he's operated as the clear lead back. I think he looks like one of the better backs in the NFL already. 95 scrimmage yards in one game, 115 yards in another, 128 yards in another. He has 2 touchdowns during that stretch. And he's managed to do it against a tougher part of the schedule. The Packers, the Lions, the Vikings. Like, he's coming through in spots where you were looking at him going, okay, that's a difficult matchup. We got to downgrade him a little bit there. And no, he still goes out. And part of it is because they have to build it around the run game. And even when they fall behind, they got to keep running the ball. They don't really turn to the air completely. But still, he looks so good out there. What happens when the schedule starts to get a little bit easier, which it is going to here? I just think that everyone should acknowledge that this guy is a borderline fantasy RB1 the rest of the year. This guy's in the mix as a top 12 running back for fantasy. And I don't think everyone is looking at him that way. So if people are still valuing as a top 20 guy, as an RB2, you go out and get him at all costs. This guy is going to be an impact fantasy player the rest of the season, even though he is on the Browns. He has already shown us, Harmon, we discussed it in the summer. When we see the rookies on the field, the first thing you want to figure out is, do they belong, or are they going to be somebody that's going to take a little bit of time to get acclimated to the pros, or are they someone that maybe doesn't even belong in the league and we'll see him in the CFL at some point, right? Well, Judkins hits the ground running, no pun intended, and immediately looks like a star. And I don't think everyone is acknowledging that fact. And I think in some leagues, I have been able to still get him at a reduced price. I just don't think people are realizing how valuable this guy could be.
I mean, he's been the best rookie running back this year so far, right?
Hands down.
Yeah. I mean, from a fantasy perspective, sure. But I just think from like eye test efficiency wise, he's been, and that doesn't mean he's going to be the best forever, right? But I think that he's been the best so far. Here are your top 5 players in terms of rushing yards over expected in terms of next gen stats. Number 1 is Javonte Williams. Just like we all predicted. Number 2, David Montgomery. Number 3, Quinshon Judkins. Number 4, J.K. Dobbins. Number 5, Bill Krosky-Merritt. So 2 rookies in the top 5 there. Quinshon Judkins has been not just getting what's blocked, he's been getting extra onto his runs. He has 8 runs of 10 plus yards. He has 12 runs of 15 plus miles per hour according to next gen stats. So like there's been 4.3 yards after contact per attempt. Like he's getting more than just what is there, which is good because I do have some concerns about this Browns offensive line in the long term, especially at the left tackle position. But Dylan Gabriel being at the quarterback position definitely is an upgrade on what we're going to get from Joe Flacco, the pocket sloth at this point. And I maintain that this Steelers defense, which is who they're playing this week, is not good. I still think there's some issues from a speed perspective, and Quinshon Judkins with that size and speed, this is definitely a matchup where I think he'll be good. And yeah, he's played really good football. There's no question. I did not see it coming after spending 0 time with the team in training camp because of the domestic violence incident. And not signing a contract, I did not see that coming. But man, he has been great when he's been on the field. That's for sure.
Yeah, to show up on 2 days of practice and immediately start producing, it's been really impressive from him. I talked a lot about that one because I was fired up about that one. We got some other guys that will go a little further down here in terms of rookies who I think are going to start to have even bigger days moving forward. Matthew Golden on the Packers. I'm curious to see your thoughts on him here. I know it was a slow start to the season. He was playing around 50% of the snaps the first 2 weeks, 2 catches, 2 carries, not much production in those games. But his last 2 outings, 4 catches for 52 yards. He had 3 carries for 9 yards in week 4 as well. And then 5 for 58 and a 5-yard carry on top of it. He's another guy who's coming off a bye here, with 60 yards in back-to-back contests. Is this a spot where he is going to start to get more usage in this offense? And I know it's the Packers and they like to spread the ball around, and we talk about that all the time, but this is also a guy that they took in the first round. We said it with Colston Loveland, right? Like, these teams that invested in these players, they had a plan for them. And if they could start to come through, which it looks like Golden is, at least on paper in terms of his production, it's starting to ramp up here. His usage is starting to ramp up. Let's see what he can become coming off the bye here. And I mean, you're going against a great matchup in the Bengals, right? They've given up at least 55 yards and or a touchdown to 5 different receivers in just the last 2 games, Harmon. Like, the golden breakout is coming. I think this might be the week that it actually hits. And he's not going to be a superstar. I'm not suggesting that this guy is going to end up being a top 10 fantasy receiver or anything like that. But he is someone that is going to provide a lot of value based on the way people are looking at him right now. A solid wide receiver 3, a wide receiver 3 with some fantasy upside as well, in an offense that needs somebody to step up. Like, Romeo Doubs had a big game against the Cowboys, but like, someone else in this passing attack needs to step up. It can't just be Tucker Kraft. They don't have that number 1 receiver. Could Golden be that guy, Harmon?
God, I don't know, man. They just rotate these receivers so much, and Christian Watson is back at practice this week. I mean, is he going to play in this game? Yeah, Xavier Williams gets time. Dontavian Wicks gets time. Romeo Doubs is kind of the entrenched guy as the X. I'm hoping what we do see from Golden, even if he doesn't get a route participation bump, which I'm skeptical that he'll be like 75% of the routes. I'm skeptical of that just because they do rotate these receivers. What I'm hoping to see is that he's getting some more layup routes, because his route tree is truly just all downfield stuff prior to the bye. So maybe they take this time, because Jaden Reed's on IR. We don't know when Jaden Reed's going to be back. If he does come back, it will be late. It's going to be a while. It's going to be late in the season. We're in week 6. It's going to be a while till we see him. But is Matthew Golden used in some of those more Jaden Reed ways, closer to the line of scrimmage, getting him on sweeps, getting him on motion plays, that I think would be encouraging, because otherwise, if he's in this kind of part-time role and he's only getting downfield stuff, that's like an even less predictable Jameson Williams type player on a run-heavy offense, and I think that would just be discouraging. So I was kind of mixed, but mostly positive on Golden as a prospect, and I liked him as a pick in redraft this year. I've just gotten a little bit more bearish on the fantasy usage for this year, because my thought was, they used a first-round pick on him. How are they still going to use him in a rotation? Well, guess what they've done? They've still used him in a rotation.
It's early. It is still very, very early, and I see behind the scenes they are pointing out here that last week we called the Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt breakout game, so hey, I think this could be a similar thing where we see Golden just go off in this game. And even, again, this is the point I'm trying to make, that it might not be consistent. We're not talking about a guy that's going to put up 100 yards every single week, but let's see him have that big game in a good matchup. And then at least we can look forward to that when those matchups come for the Packers down the road here. We'll move on. We'll talk about some other.
I'm glad. Just real quick. I'm glad you said that, because the Bill Krosky-Merritt point that we discussed last week is instructive. We framed this last week as, hey, this run game is awesome. It's one of the most efficient run games in the league. The problem is the snaps are split 3 ways. But our theory was, what if they just see enough from Bill and they say, hey, we're just going to give that guy more work? And that is exactly what happened. So there is certainly, I'm probably being a little bit too close-minded, which let's all acknowledge that I've got some scars with the Packers wide receivers and this rotation. So let's all admit our biases here. And by all of us, I do mean me. Now that that's been admitted, we can say that, like, yes, there's the chance I'm being a little bit too hard-nosed about this and rigid in the idea that Matthew Golden's going to come out and have the same exact usage he always had. It's very possible this is a situation that we just see something different. So Boone, I'm glad we got that out there before we move on to these other guys.
Also nice to see on the JCM topic, nice to see the coaching staff out there working with him, working on route running. Like they want to develop this guy
Oh
into
yeah,
a true lead back in the
and he's
offense.
good.
And they're doing it the right way. So if you have JCM, be very, very excited there. I think if you have Mason Taylor on the Jets, I think people need to be way more excited about this guy too. And we talked about it on Monday's show, going over the waiver wire pickups for the week. I guess, Harmon, I didn't make it clear enough. I guess I didn't make a strong enough case in the waiver wire column because he is still available in 67% of leagues. Folks, this is a top 12 fantasy tight end the rest of the season. I know it's the Jets passing attack, and you figure, okay, they can only support Garrett Wilson. Not true. Mason Taylor is emerging as the number 2 pass catcher in that offense. 13 targets in his last 2 games, 5 for 65 in week 4, 9 for 67 on 12 targets in week 5. And this week, when Garrett Wilson has to go up against Pat Surtain and the Broncos, who are they going to turn to? There is not a second receiver out there that they are going to be able to lean on. The second receiver is Mason Taylor. I think this is going to continue. Another guy that had fairly high draft capital, not first round, but a day 2 pick, somebody that they saw a role for, and he's already taking it over. And I think it would have happened maybe even sooner, but he had an injury in the preseason that kind of slowed his development. That delayed his launch a little bit, but certainly I think somebody that you could pick up. And there's a lot of players out there that you might be able to drop at tight end or potentially trade away if you can get some value for them and just start Mason Taylor the rest of the way. I think this guy is somebody that should be in starting lineups, not on waiver wires, and yet he's on waiver wires in the majority of leagues, Harmon.
Love the playing time here the last 2 weeks. As we've talked about with tight ends, we're trying to find the number 2 target on the team. We're trying to find somebody that's on the field over 80% of the snaps. So far, the last 2 weeks, Mason Taylor has blown away 81.5% of the snaps and to run a route on 81% of the dropbacks. So and that's number 2. Both of those things, number 2 behind Garrett Wilson, as you mentioned, 19 targets, which is actually one ahead of Garrett Wilson over the last 2 weeks, 14 receptions. Now, he definitely might be a little bit of a catch and fall type, but that's fine. That's okay. We're talking about a lot of receptions here. I have Travis Kelce actually on a full point PPR roster, and I still spent a significant amount of fab, maybe too much, honestly. I was one of those where I looked at what everybody else spent. I was like, oh, did I overdo this one? Spent a little bit too much of fab to get Mason Taylor just because I do think there's a high ceiling here. Maybe I can use one of these guys as a trade chip because people don't have tight ends. I don't know. Again, maybe overthinking it, but I just saw Mason Taylor on the waiver wire. I like everything you said. I agree with you. I think he's a top 12 tight end rest of the way. When we're looking for, the next kind of Tucker Kraft type at tight end, an under the radar type guy who can be on the field all the time, it's guys like Mason Taylor at 6'5", 250. It's guys like A.J. Barner at 6'6", 250. Barner's definitely a deeper name. Doesn't necessarily have the same target upside as Mason Taylor. But nevertheless, I do think also fits into this bucket too. So I'm with you on the Mason Taylor thing. Very interested to see the matchup here for him this week. We've got 2 more names for the rookies here to rip off here.
Yeah, we could probably go a little quicker through these. These are deeper ones, so these are complete stashes or if you're in really, really deep leagues. But Gunnar Helm on the Titans, he's been their number 2 tight end this year. Will he continue to be the number 2 tight end, Harmon? I think there's a chance that he's not just the number 2 for much longer because the coaching staff absolutely loves this guy. They've talked about how good things always happen when the ball gets in his hands, when they throw it his way. And they have said this is another situation where they have said they are going to get him more opportunities, that he's going to get more targets moving forward. And he's gone from playing around a third of the snaps a few weeks ago to playing a season high 66% of the snaps in week 5. And he turned that into season highs with 5 targets, 4 catches, 34 yards. And I know that's not super impressive. That's why you're not putting him in your fantasy lineup just yet. But things are trending in the right direction for him. When you have the OC, there it is right there, just outright talking about how good he is and how they need to get him more work. That's great. Chig Okonkwo was still involved last week. I don't want to suggest that he is completely past him, but week 5 was the first time that he played fewer snaps than Helm. So could that be the writing on the wall that it's going in that direction? I don't think it's impossible that we could see that trend continue. So I think Helm is somebody you could stash in deeper formats. So is Brashard Smith on the Chiefs. We're switching to running back after talking about tight end a little bit there, but Brashard Smith is a name that certainly has been circulated. I know we had ESPN's Dan Graziano talk about him as somebody that could get more work moving forward a week or 2 ago. And I think that needs to happen. Like Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. Isaiah Pacheco is somebody who has been in coping corner longer than anyone this season. Doesn't seem like he's coming out.
Yeah.
Pacheco and Hunt are just like boring. Like they're going to get you what's blocked, I guess. There's nothing really exciting coming from them. They'll fall into the end zone when they get those opportunities, but they need somebody else in this backfield to give them a little bit of juice. And Brashard Smith can do that. And he's not somebody that's going to come in and take over like a JCM. He's not going to be a lead back necessarily, but think about like the Jerick McKinnon role in that offense back in the day, right? Like, could he come in and be that kind of pass catcher, that guy that's explosive and dynamic? He could certainly fill that role in the last couple of weeks. He's got 3 catches in each of the last 2 games here. So this is somebody that I think it makes a lot of sense for the Chiefs in real life to get him into this offense and get him involved. And for fantasy, you want to be ahead of the curve on that. So you go stash him and you see just how big of a role he can carve out in that backfield.
Yeah, 100%. This is just one where the Jerick McKinnon comparison is right. Like, that's probably the ceiling of what we're looking at here, which is, more of a flex play, somebody that's a bye week fill-in type. I'm with you that I don't know if I see him taking over the backfield, but he does have to see one of these veterans completely removed, and I just don't know that Kareem Hunt's going anywhere because he plunges in 2 touchdowns on Monday night. He has the 33-yard run, which, by the way, is his longest run since 2021 or whatever. So yeah, I do think that. Yeah, I mean, we've got a quote up here from the Chiefs special teams coordinator, Dave Tobe, that's where Brashard Smith is trying to make his hay right now. So definitely someone I'm interested to see how he gets integrated in the offense. A little bit skeptical that he's like a routine fantasy back at any point this season. But let's get to your third question here, and we're sticking on actually, before we get to your third question, let's throw up the YouTube poll results that we threw out here on rookie running backs. Who would you rather have in Dynasty? Quinshon Judkins, Ashton Jeanty, 52% of the YouTube chat, which is the best and brightest, by the way. The best and the brightest in terms of the fantasy space is in our YouTube chat. There's a lot of bozos out there, not on our YouTube chat. That's where these are the real folks who know ball, and they say 52% of them want Quinshon Judkins in Dynasty over Ashton Jeanty. So we'll see how that take ages, but that is a testament to how well Quinshon has been playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's close at this point. Like, he has been so good and he's continuing. It's not just been 1 or 2 games. He's outproduced them so far this year. I like the fact that Genty's getting more work in the passing game now. That's going to help save his value this season for the rest of the year while the Raiders aren't that great. But yeah, it's interesting that it is that close. I would not have guessed that Judkins would have won that poll.